Hello, my name is Sig Erickson. We're back for another episode of Eight Eagles Gather, and I'm going to call this one Special Fridays at School. And what was happening there was that I was teaching in a situation in Brandon, Manitoba, where three of us teachers combined together were doing certain special classes in grade 7, 8, and 9. Now, quite often at this point in time, the grade 9s on a Friday were working outside of the school at work experience programs, and one of the other teachers and myself would just tremendously enjoy going out and seeing these kids working in different situations in the community, helping out whatever they could do, talking to their bosses and their supervisors at these places of location, and perhaps finding out how they were doing and whether they were following instructions carefully or not, and then able to, at occasions, go back to school, talk to them about these job situations and whatnot, and all part of learning and good practical learning because they got experience outside of the school system. Now, for the other couple of grades, there were things going on at school, regular school, and one of them that I would like to tell you about was called Film Reviews. And I did that as a special project on a Friday afternoon where I would choose a certain film or picture or movie to bring in. We'd see the movie in class together, and then what I would do was ask them questions about that movie. Not only what they learned, but how they interpreted certain things, what they would do if they were in a life situation like this, and so on. So it was very, very well learning material, interaction with the students, getting opinions and ideas from them, and yeah, it was exciting. And they would have to write down answers to my certain group of questions or whatever, and then either present them in class, or a certain question may be more involved than others. How did they respond to each one of these questions? And I'll give you an example. Okay, one of the films that we looked at was still what I remember today to be an absolutely excellent movie, and that was The Lion King. And just excellent for learning, and about the young little lion who was destined to be king, and all the instructions that was given to him that he was to learn and follow if he was going to be the successor to the throne and to the kingdom. And I remember one of the things that was taught in that film, because it was a very, very precious film, was don't go into the Shadowlands. So they knew that at a certain point in time there was a kind of a borderline, and the instructions were, and the little fellow, okay, training to be king, was told, do not go into the Shadowlands. And so often we're told a very, very similar thing today. Don't go looking for trouble, or trouble will find you. And also, curiosity killed the cat, and different expressions like that. But the little fellow, he crossed into the Shadowlands and got himself into a lot of trouble and things like that. And yeah, so just those facts about learning are tremendously good. And a lot of the better films made today are things that are just exactly like that. And so that's one film. And so the kids also were given opportunity to suggest, okay, films that they might like to see or whatever. And here's where perhaps one has got to be very, very careful, because they may all of a sudden decide, oh, you know what, I like this show, it was kind of very questionable or whatever. So you've got to be prepared to brace yourself if they want to see a show or a movie, you've never seen it yourself before, and all of a sudden you're watching something horrendous or whatever. Also, Fridays were a time when we did special projects, kind of like collections and different things like that, and the opportunity was given for kids to come up and say what they wanted to do for a project. And I remember one such occasion where they were choosing projects, but they had to be approved by me as well. I remember one case where a student wanted to do something on sexuality and pregnancy and birth and things like that. And I said, well, let's sit down and have a chat together, because I want to kind of find out where you're wanting to go with this project. And so when she sat down with me and explained that she wanted to go through the kind of the cycles and the growth of the child in the womb and things like that, I said, okay, you know what, if you stick with these parameters or whatever, I'm going to let you go ahead and do this project. And a lot of these projects then were done, okay, in class time. The kids had the opportunity to work on them, perhaps ask questions, bring in research and things like that. And then they were given the opportunity to present them before the class. And I'm going to tell you about one situation where a student got up and he did a project on, I think it was related maybe to early life or something like that. And all of a sudden he mentions in class that when the little new baby was born in his family, and he got to go into the maternity ward and look at you know, be with his mom and see the newborn baby in their family. He spoke to me and he said, oh, he says, and all of a sudden what I noticed was that there was a piece of metal stuck in the baby's stomach. And this young kid was horrified, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, he hasn't talked to anybody about this, or nobody was able to explain this to him as to exactly what this was. So it was an opportunity for me to sit down with him. And so often things like that happen in schools, where kids will see something, they will not talk to anybody about it or ask questions, or even if they're getting bullied or whatever, they'll kind of keep silent. And as soon as this young fellow said this to me, I knew exactly what the situation was, and I was able to take him aside and say, this is part of the whole birth process. What you saw was not a piece of metal going into the little baby's stomach. This was a clamp that was on the umbilical cord when the baby was born. And oh my goodness, like the relief that came over this young boy's mind was just absolutely incredible, because that would have probably hampered him for a good part of his life if he hadn't said something about it, or the opportunity was not there in terms of a school project for him to express himself and be open enough to talk about it. So there's all kinds of things like this that can happen and whatnot. And just to spend a few minutes about allowing somebody to pick a movie or whatever, and I found that very, very quickly to be kind of very, very dangerous, because you kind of want to give kids a little bit of free opportunity as well at the same time. And so this one movie that this one girl had chosen to bring to school, we saw it right to the end, and I was actually very, very horrified as to what was in this movie. So we also, though, had the opportunity to deal with it, to talk about it, and things like that. So yeah, you've always got to be careful as to what you do, and you know, kind of complete things that you're doing. And if you land into a situation or whatever, deal with it. Don't let it just wait around and kind of give you depression and the kids depression at the same time, and nothing is learned or gained from that. What I would do too is special projects that we would have. The kids would work at them. They would all do presentations to the rest of the class on those projects. I made out special sheets for evaluating these projects when the kids went up to present them. And I said to the kids, I said, okay, I'm going to have a sheet. I'm going to do an evaluation of my own while you are listening and evaluating. And when you do something like that and get the class involved, it also makes them listen to the presentation. If you've got 24, 25 kids in the classroom, you've got 24, 25 eyes and ears listening and focusing, and they're not just kind of goofing around and not paying attention. or thinking about their own things. And of course, these were back in the days when there wasn't any cell phones, so there wasn't any distractions like that. But I said to the kids, okay, what we're going to do together is I'm going to evaluate, and then you as a class are going to evaluate, and we'll take all of your scores together and we'll put them into what is called an average, and we'll average out the class evaluation and see how close it comes to mine. And so invariably those two evaluations came up very, very close together. So it was kind of an intriguing project, and kind of an intriguing way to do things, and to get the kids involved in their own education, and to listen to others, listen to presentations, be able to pick out things, because they could ask questions after as well. And so kind of a neat idea, and kind of part of the special projects that I had in school for a Friday. I'm just going to check my list here and see what else is on here. And yeah, so the ones that again went out on work experience, okay, they got to write reports and things like that too about a specific job location, how that was evaluated. And for example, it was back in the days when there was a lot of, let's say, buildings maybe being renovated or torn down. And so what happened there too was, we had heard the fellow that I went out with to look at the work experience sites where the kids were working. There was a bunch of asbestos being torn out of buildings and things like that at that point in time. So right away the red flag goes up for us. We kind of go directly to the place where this was occurring to find out, okay, are safety precautions being taken here? What is exactly happening? And come up with a determination as to whether this was actually done safely, or how closely the students were involved, face masks and all of that type of thing. And some of the kids, I mean, they learned a lot from this. They learned kind of what jobs they might prefer to do later on in life, and which ones they didn't like to do. And so another situation that occurred one time was that there was one of the kids working in a lumberyard type of situation, where sheets of plywood and things like that were coming off the racks or coming off the shelves. And so that particular student suffered a cut in the upper forehead or head area, across the top of the forehead, a cut because of something that occurred at that job site. So we went there specifically to investigate, okay, what happened here, what was the occurrence, what was done directly after to help the student out. And we basically found out that accidents do happen, and things occur when you're dealing in the working world, and it's something that the kids have to get used to as well. There's safety things that need to be done, safety glasses, safety boots perhaps, gloves or whatever, and vests and whatever protection is necessary. So we helped follow that through very carefully as well. So hopefully this kind of last so many minutes or whatever was kind of an inspiration to all of you out there to get involved and do things and things like that with respect to education and being involved in that. I sure basically would not change my choice of career at all. I'm still basically doing that these days right across the country in times of COVID, helping people across the country, even from a Christian point of view or whatever, getting them to not just sit in front of the TV and waste time or whatever, but to turn the TV off, turn the cell phones off, and do some research on your own, do some of your own Bible reading along the way or whatever, because a lot of services were being cut short or held back, and that type of thing and whatnot. So it's interesting when you can actually get involved, help direct people, help them in their choices of what they're doing. And I want to just end this session with the fact, if you see something, say something, and then do something. Even that, if that's contacting ministers' offices, ministerial offices, government offices, offices in Ottawa, go ahead and do it, because you are a citizen of this country and you have the absolute right to let your thoughts and be heard and so on. So we'll close for now. Bye for now, and all the best to you and blessings to you all.